capacity
on December the 31st of 2025, you posted in front of God.
But wait. Do you disagree with what I said?
Let me finish my question.
I'm
You
sorry.
answered, sir.
Sure.
In front of God and country, you said, quote, they, referring to Republicans, think they can troll their way into us accepting ethnic cleansing, end quote. Your words, not mine. Did I read that correctly?
That was in regard to a Department of Homeland Security post about advocating 100 million deportations. That is what DHS has tweeted from their own account. 100 million deportations would be ethnic cleansing. You would be removing 1/3 of the country. So yes, there are people within the Department of Homeland Security.
And you don't think this is hyperbolic? Give me 30 more seconds.
A witness sitting in front of the United States Senate just claimed that Republicans are planning to deport 100 million people, including American-born citizens, and called it a population purge. Senator Kennedy's response was 3 words. Stay with me until the end, because what this witness said on his own social media account is the part that nobody is talking about. Like and subscribe right now, because this one is going to move.
Mr. Duke, you worked for President Biden and Vice President Harris, didn't you?
Yes.
And I listened carefully to your testimony today. You expressed, well, you offered the opinion that the One Big Beautiful Bill is terrible in part because it will cause deficits. Is that right?
Yes.
Isn't it a fact that the profligacy of President Biden caused 9% inflation in America?
No.
Okay. Isn't it a fact that if President Biden had discovered life on Mars when he was president, he would have immediately sent it money?
I don't believe so.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, I appreciate your newly found fiscal conservatism. Mr. Beer, you seem to be a very smart guy, and you seem to be a nice enough guy.
Thank you, Senator. You seem smart as well.
Jack.
Don't.
That was the chairman, not me.
Don't you think your hyperbolic statements undermine your credibility?
What hyperbolic statement did I make?
On February the 11th, 2026, you posted on Bluesky, quote, my words, or your words, not mine. The Democrats' video telling service members to ignore illegal orders didn't go far enough. They should have also urged them to refuse unethical orders, whether illegal or not. There are many things deemed legal that are still obviously unethical, and everyone should hold themselves to this higher law, end quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe you did. Do you disagree with it? You think people should do unethical things in their capacity?
On December the 31st of 2025, you posted in front of God.
But wait. Do you disagree with what I said?
Let me finish my question.
I'm sorry.
Answered, sir.
Sure.
In front of God and country, you said, quote, they, referring to Republicans, think they can troll their way into us accepting ethnic cleansing, end quote. Your words, not mine. Did I read that correctly?
That was in regard to a Department of Homeland Security post about advocating 100 million deportations. That is what DHS has tweeted from their own account. 100 million deportations would be ethnic cleansing. You would be removing 1/3 of the country. So yes, there are people within the Department of Homeland Security.
And you don't think this is hyperbolic? Give me 30 more seconds.
I think advocating 100 million deportations is
I'm having fun here,
ethnic
Mr. Chairman.
cleansing.
On February 5th, you quoted you said the following on Bluesky.
Your time is up.
These are all good, but there's no enforcement mechanism. I'm sorry. Let me try a better one. On March 2nd, you said, quote, if you rule against Trump's population purge agenda. No hyperbole there. The nativists will name you, threaten you, and come after you. These judges are much braver than the ICE agents who hide behind masks while violating the Constitution.
They are much braver. They put their names on their rulings and they stand behind their constitutional rulings. When I talk about population purge, I'm talking about the fact that they're trying to deport U.S.-born citizens, people born here. They are trying to deport them as well. So it's not a mass deportation agenda. It is also an agenda intended to reduce the population of the United States, including U.S.-born people.
Thank
so
you.
these are not hyperbolic statements. I appreciate you reading my account. I appreciate
Here's
your
the good
research.
news.
What planet did you just, wait a minute, Mr. Chairman, what planet did you just parachute in from?
No. Hey, guys.
You trigger my gag reflex, Mr. Beaver.
So we got a process here, and it's good to know you don't have an agenda. Senator King.
Mr. Chair, thanks for doing this. And
There are hearings in Washington where the back and forth is predictable. Both sides make their points, nobody moves, and the whole thing gets filed away. And then there are moments like this one, where a sitting United States senator is forced to ask a witness what planet he parachuted in from. That is not a rhetorical flourish. That is a man who has spent decades in the Senate looking across a table at someone and genuinely struggling to process what he just heard. Senator Kennedy opened with a straightforward line of questioning. Did you work for President Biden and Vice President Harris? Yes. Did the spending policies of that administration produce 9% inflation in America? The witness said no. Not debatable, not complicated, not a matter of interpretation. The inflation numbers are public record. They are documented. And the witness looked at a United States senator and said no. That set the tone for everything that followed. Kennedy then shifted to the witness's own words, not characterizations of his views, not secondhand accounts of what he may have said, his actual posts, dated, sourced, read directly into the congressional record. February 11, 2026. The witness posted that a Democrat video telling service members to ignore legal orders did not go far enough, and that everyone should hold themselves to a higher law above legal authority. That is a sitting witness before the Senate arguing that members of the United States military should apply their own personal ethical standard to determine which orders they follow. Think carefully about what that means in practice. It does not mean standing up against genuine atrocities. It means any individual service member substituting their own judgment for the chain of command based on their personal politics. That is not a principled stand. That is a recipe for institutional collapse. December 31st, 2025. The witness posted that Republicans think they can troll their way into people accepting ethnic cleansing. His defense of that statement was that the Department of Homeland Security had posted about 100 million deportations. There are between 12 and 35 million undocumented individuals, estimated to be in the United States, depending on which methodology you use. The number 100 million does not appear in any credible immigration data set. It does not come from DHS policy documents. It is a number the witness produced to justify the most inflammatory possible characterization of a federal immigration policy. That is not analysis. That is fabrication dressed up as outrage. March 2nd. The witness described federal immigration enforcement as a population purge agenda and accused ICE agents of hiding behind masks while violating the Constitution. He then contrasted them unfavorably with federal judges, whom he praised for standing behind their constitutional rulings. Setting aside the characterization of law enforcement officers doing their jobs, the framing reveals something important about the worldview on display in that hearing room. In this witness's framework, judges who issue rulings blocking executive enforcement are constitutional heroes. Law enforcement officers executing lawful orders are constitutional villains. That is not a legal argument. That is a political loyalty test applied to the institutions of government. Kennedy's reaction, the gag reflex comment, was blunt. It was also honest, because what was happening in that room was not a policy disagreement. A policy disagreement involves competing interpretations of data, competing priorities, competing visions for how to achieve a shared goal. What was happening in that room was a witness using fabricated numbers and maximally inflammatory language to characterize an entire political movement as genocidal while sitting under oath before the United States Senate. The 100 million number is the tell. If you are genuinely concerned about the scope and human cost of immigration enforcement, there are real numbers to work with. There are real documented cases. There are real legal questions about due process and jurisdiction that deserve serious examination. None of that requires inventing a figure that is 3 to 8 times larger than any credible estimate of the undocumented population. The only reason to use a number like 100 million is to make the policy sound like something it is not. And when a witness does that under oath before a Senate committee, the question of whether that crosses a legal threshold is a legitimate one. The broader pattern here is worth naming clearly. The inflation question at the start of the hearing was not a warm-up. It was a baseline test. If a witness cannot acknowledge a documented economic reality that every American lived through at the grocery store, at the gas pump, in their monthly bills, then the credibility of everything else that witness says is compromised from the start. Kennedy knew that. The witness failed the test immediately, and the rest of the hearing played out exactly as you would expect. There is a structural problem underneath all of this that goes beyond one hearing and one witness. When the legal and social consequences for saying provably false things in public forums are minimal, the incentive to stretch, exaggerate, and fabricate increases. The witness in this hearing did not appear to be concerned about the accuracy of the numbers he cited. He did not appear to be concerned about the inflammatory nature of comparing federal policy to ethnic cleansing and population purges. He appeared confident that the framing would land, that it would be amplified, and that the costs of being caught in an overstatement would be negligible. Senator Kennedy disagreed, and he made that disagreement very clear, line by line, post by post, date by date. The SAVE Act is worth understanding in this context because it speaks directly to the downstream consequences of what was on display in that hearing. The Act establishes documentation requirements for voter registration. The argument against it is that it creates barriers to participation. The argument for it is that a functioning democratic process requires verified participation. That is a debate worth having seriously. What it does not require is a witness before the Senate claiming that the people who support it are planning to remove a third of the American population from the country. That is not an argument against the SAVE Act. That is an attempt to make the argument impossible by poisoning the premise. Senator Kennedy has been in that chamber long enough to have seen a great deal. His reaction to this particular witness was not the measured frustration of a politician scoring points. It was the visible disbelief of someone watching a person sit under oath and say things that do not connect to any verifiable reality. The gag reflex comment was not a debate technique. It was a human response to something genuinely difficult to process. The record is what it is. The posts are dated. The numbers are documented. And the contrast between what the witness claimed and what the data actually shows is sitting in the congressional record for anyone who wants to look it up.